Let's take a breath together. I have to chuckle every time I look at this title. Anybody else look at that and think, I've danced with a few jackasses? I've been a jackass some folks have had to dance with. That's not what we're talking about this morning. But I had to get that out of the way. So in the Christian tradition, this is the beginning of Holy Week. And it means a lot of things to a lot of people in a lot of different faith traditions, from Ramadan to Easter to Passover, all of that. In Science of Mind, we don't actually have any recognized holidays. A lot of folks in Science of Mind don't even really know that, but we don't. We don't view Jesus as the great exception. We view Jesus as the great example of what is fully present and fully available in each and every one of us. And this whole time of Jesus entering Jerusalem, and yes, he rode in on a donkey, according to the records that we have. I personally can't vouch for that. I wasn't there. We have a lot of stories. Some of them I take with a grain of salt. Some of them are really suspect. I think the majority of them, if not all of them, are allegories. That they're not meant to be taken literally, because literally some of what is proposed strikes me as preposterous. The idea that Jesus, a human being, a flesh and blood human being, just like us, had no doubts by the stories in the Bible isn't even true. Isn't even true. If you read the accounts of his time in the Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed twice. Prayed twice from a place of, I know what's going to happen, and I don't want it to happen. If there is any way to extricate me from this process, if there is a way to remove this cup from me, take it. Now that is a man who is aware of what is about to happen, the depth of what is about to happen, the physical pain of what is about to happen. And for me, that story is about that place of surrender where we are dancing with our own humanity. Interestingly enough, in metaphysics, the donkey has two meanings. One, the most obvious, our stubbornness, our untrainability, our undisciplined nature as humans. The other is that the donkey is also persistent. Stubbornness, persistence. It's a fine line, yes? They often look the same. Perhaps it's our motivation that shifts it from stubbornness to persistence. And the donkey is also that carrier of the burden. Right? You can load up a donkey and it will navigate its way through a narrow, rocky, unsure path. And it does so really without our assistance. If you've ever done any trail riding, you will find that if you leave the donkey alone, it will navigate its own path. If you try to tell it where to walk, it becomes more complicated, and then there are trip and fall hazards because the donkey knows what it's doing. Perhaps there's a part of you that knows how to navigate the sure-footedness of a rocky trail that you may not want to cross. Perhaps. The whole story of Jesus on the donkey is his arrival into Jerusalem. Little known fact, the word Jerusalem means habitation of peace. So metaphysically, we're looking at Jesus' arrival to an inhabitation of peace. The traveling of a rocky road, of navigating his own stubbornness, of navigating things that he's not sure he can actually fulfill from the inhabitation of peace. Now, I won't begin to pretend that I can even imagine what it must be like to know that I am being sought after, that I am about to be imprisoned, that I am about to be put on trial, convicted no matter what happens, because they've already convicted me. The trial is just to satisfy the legal standard, and then to be crucified. To know that's coming, and to be present with that in the habitation of peace. How does one inhabit a place of peace within themselves with all of that? Well, I submit to you that we all know a little something about that if we just step back from our own stuff far enough to gain a different perspective. Any woman who has ever given birth has done this. They know it's not going to be a cakewalk, right? They've spent 9 months really solidifying that this is about to be an interesting journey. Right? And then the contractions start. And I can tell you, as an EMT, I've been with 2 women who, at some point in the process, when it got really real, were like, nope, not doing it. It's not an uncommon thing for a woman to be in the middle of labor and have this mindset of, oh no. I read a lot of books, but you can't experience it from a book. And then all of a sudden, there it is. Very, very real. Nope, not doing it. Only there's no off switch. The only species I know of that has the capacity to do that are horses. Horses in the middle of labor, if the mare perceives her environment to be unsafe, she can shut down labor like that and relocate herself to a safe place to give birth to that foal. How amazing is nature, right? We don't have that capacity. Right? But we do have the capacity to lean into the truth that, okay, let's look at the evidence of childbirth. Centuries, women have been doing this and doing it successful. So sometimes perhaps we draw on the experience of others to recognize that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay here. Right? Even if we have to convince ourselves, much like Jesus did in the Garden of Gethsemane, that I don't want to do this, but apparently it's mine to do. And so we lean into it. There's a phrase in 12-step recovery. You can go kicking and screaming, or you can go singing and dancing, but you're going to go. Right? And perhaps if we could look at our journey through life through that lens of choice, that we can choose, do I want to go kicking and screaming, or do I want to go singing and dancing? Now, here's the thing. Most of us, when we think about kicking and screaming, we think about hard times. And when we think about singing and dancing, we got unicorn clouds and cotton candy. That's not what that means. Because we don't get to pick a journey that is absent of conflict. We don't get to pick a journey that is 100% free of pain. We just don't. Because we live in this thing called planet Earth. We live in this container called a body. We live in humanity. And there's going to be pain. You're going to stump your toe from time to time. You're going to make a decision from time to time that has an outcome that leaves you with, really? I didn't see that coming. Does it mean you made a wrong choice? No. It means you made a choice that involves other people. See, sometimes we fall into this idea that I'm just choosing for me and I'm not interacting with the rest of humanity. There's no such place where I can make a choice that doesn't interact with humanity. Period. We all share the same breath. We're all using the same mind. We're all sharing the same atmosphere. And I can divorce myself from the idea that anything I do impacts you, but it won't make it true. I mean, how many times have we fallen into the I'm only hurting myself lie? Well, there are people who love us who might be experiencing hurt because of us, because of the choices that we make. We get to choose again. We get to choose again. So this idea of entering a habitation of peace, I suggest we start with our past. As if you're walking around still holding on to regret about your decisions, still holding on to resentments about other people's decisions or behaviors. The habitation of peace, not so much going to happen, folks. You cannot enter a habitation of peace carrying a backpack or leading a donkey that's weighed down with resentment and regret. You can't do it. You got to get rid of that stuff. You got to lay it down. You got to let it go. Now, we all have different ways of doing that. And if you don't know how to do that, I suggest you invest in hiring a practitioner to assist you. I'll wrap up with this. It's a beautiful thought, and it's a scary thought. I am helping Rev D, Reverend Deborah Johnson, down in Santa Cruz, facilitate a 7-week online journey of healing divides. And one of the things that came out in the class last week is we become what we won't forgive. Take that in. We become what we refuse to forgive. And so if it's so disturbing to you that you don't want to be that, forgiveness is your way out of that. And forgiveness becomes that beautiful portal to the habitation of peace, because it frees you. It gets all the clutter off your dance floor so that you really can dance. And sometimes you're dancing with your stubbornness, and sometimes you're dancing with your sure-footedness. But rest assured, you're always dancing with you. And you might think it's somebody else, but we are always dancing with the one that brung us. Every time. Let's take this into prayer. So with this breath, the one breath, the breath of the infinite, God breathing itself into being, Spirit breathing itself into being, I remember that I am that all life is that all life is created out of this one consciousness, to be that we are given this beautiful choice, this beautiful power of free will. And in this moment, I choose to use that freedom to know that I am the divine in form. To know that what is true of me is true of all life. And so every individualized expression of it is the divine. And so I speak my word consciously choosing to see beyond behavior, to see beyond stumbling blocks, to see beyond resentment, to see beyond anything that would distort my view of the truth that every living being is the divine in form. I speak my word this morning, claiming and affirming that I am accountable. I am responsible, that within me is the ability to respond from the habitation of peace. That within me is the ability to live in Jerusalem, consciously, intentionally, and to choose from that habitation of peace to be peaceful. To be peaceful. And so I celebrate. I celebrate that as each individualized expression of the divine awakens to the capacity within to be peace, to live every moment in that habitation of peace, that we expand the activity of peace. And that as we do, peace becomes the norm of experience in this place we call earth. Grateful. Grateful for the privilege. Grateful for the knowledge that the word spoken is the word fulfilled. Grateful to know that peace is already present, awaiting our inhabitation of it. And so I let go. I let Spirit do Spirit's work. I let God do God's thing. I let the journey unfold perfectly, divinely, in harmony with itself, as we say together, and so it is.